One day in February, nearly a month after I had been diagnosed with cancer, I woke from a restful nap in the late afternoon. I heard a sound from the other room that I could not clearly identify. I made my way down the narrow hallway attached to my bedroom and entered the study at the end of the hall. I opened the door slightly and peeked in through the crack. I noticed that Becca was sitting alone in the room, speaking in a cracked voice. I could see through the crack that she was talking to someone on the phone, and I stayed in position, attempting to be unheard so that I could successfully eavesdrop on her conversation. "It's so hard, Mom." Becca began gasping for air as she attempted to spit out the next sentence. "It feels like trapped. I just can't change anything, no matter what I do, and I've done all I can. Can't go on anymore." Though I couldn't decipher the entire conversation, I became convinced that the conversation was about the love that Becca no longer felt for me. My sickness had kept her trapped in the relationship in which she was no longer fully involved, and the pain I felt as a result crushed my spirit more than the physical pain of the cancer treatments that I was still receiving. Throughout the following week, the sound of Becca's cries haunted my dreams. I woke up, sure that she had left me in the night, but saw her, faithful as always, lying next to me. One night I reached out to touch her, and she flinched upon my fingers touching her shoulder. She shivered as she subconsciously shrugged my hand away, and I felt the distance between us stretch into a void I could no longer cross. The next morning I made the conscious decision to allow her to leave me. Taylor returned home from the doctor one day in February with great news. He told Becca that the doctor had released him, completely rid of his illness. Becca was very happy to hear this news, and smiled very briefly while she hugged Taylor lightly. She pulled away and her smile disappeared. At this point, Taylor was very confused as to what had caused the great Perch King's magic to suddenly disappear. Becca was no longer in love with him, and Taylor's heart began to break. They began to speak to each other less and less, and eventually Becca left without a word, leaving Taylor alone. It had been weeks since I had told Becca that I was in remission due to the chemotherapy treatments. After a few days of living as a healed man, I had implored Becca to leave, that I could not spend another day knowing we were unhappy. She left quietly, without tears, and I knew that I had done what was best for her. But in truth, I was not in remission. In fact, the depression of losing Becca had developed into physical manifestations, keeping my body from recovering from the successive chemotherapy treatments. I was eventually admitted into the hospital as a long-term patient. As Becca was still my emergency contact, the hospital contacted her at the first sign of a more critical condition. Much to my dismay, Becca rushed to the hospital to see that the man she had left in good health was at death's door. Looking into her eyes, I could see something new. The color had returned, and the green light danced around the tears welling up on her face. I felt a longing that I never felt when we were together. I felt an aching in my chest knowing I wasn't with her. "Why did you do this?" Becca asked through tears of genuine worry and anger. "Why did you lie to me? Why did you make me leave?" "Because I couldn't bear to see you unhappy anymore." I looked down in shame and continued explaining. "I didn't want to keep you trapped in a relationship when you didn't love me." "What?" Becca gasped. "I loved you so much. I just couldn't stand the fact that you didn't love me. Did you know that you never once told me that you loved me? You never saw me as anything more than a friend who was in love with you. You were appreciative and you were wonderful, but you weren't in love with me. I wanted you to see me. You never really saw me." Becca stayed with Taylor as he dealt with his reoccurring illness, and Taylor was so happy that Becca had returned that he began to realize what had been missing in their life together before. Becca had always loved him, but he never truly felt the same way. He realized that what the great fish had said about their love being pure meant that they both had to be in love without the magic of the Fish King. When Becca returned, Taylor knew that it had nothing to do with the magic of the Perch King. For the first time ever, Taylor told Becca that he loved her. They met with an embrace, tighter and warmer than any embrace ever felt. Taylor's illness eventually went away, and, both in love and in good health, he and Becca were married on the shore of the lake where a bit of magic brought them together. They had 2 beautiful children together, and every year they take their entire family to the lake and give thanks to the Perch King for the happiness he bestowed upon them. The man on the shore finished telling the story of the Perch King and turned to his children for their reaction. His daughter was beaming at him and his son was frowning. "Dad, that story was too mushy," his son yelled as he turned his mouth upside down into a sly smile. "That's right, it's mushy," said their father. "But if that story had never happened, then you wouldn't even be here. Because that's the story of how the Perch King brought your mother and I together." His children gasped in amazement and started to giggle. The man's wife, who was by his side, directed her emerald eyes straight at his and smiled, as if to say, "That's exactly how it happened."